What? I'm sorry. In what logical? Excuse me?
I don't know, man.
Hello?
I don't know.
Are we on the same planet anymore? Like, do you not get it?
That's what I mean. Is that like there's such a disconnect. Like when you see that the president of the United States, for not a couple of days, not a couple of hours, but months, Reggie, has that information that essentially we allowed Russians to get bonuses for killing our veterans, our friends, our soldiers, that our commander in chief is allowing this, and that everyone that I know isn't just immediately like dropping Trump because that's unpatriot. That's unpatriotism in a moment, right? To have known that it leaves me at loss for words, Reggie. I don't know after I shared that article, there were 6 people that responded on it. I
Dude, I mean, nurses are literally wearing fucking trash bags. Like,
and that's the thing, right? Is it like
that was put on
we
a magazine. Like,
is
that
that no
happened.
amount of people saying that seems to convey it. No amount of people saying that, we don't have the proper PPE, that we're still, I just, like I told you earlier, I have a friend that's literally coming up to Colorado. She's taking a 1 month hiatus, a leave, or whatever you want to call it, as a nurse, right as Texas is getting real bad. And you know what? I'm not trying to criticize her, but the conversations that you and me, Reggie, know that I'd had with her, were all essentially her telling me it's a hoax. It's not something to be taken seriously. It's
Yeah, I
what
mean,
the hospitals are shutting down. We're reducing staff. You don't know what you're talking about. And
but
now
that's the weird. Okay, as someone who works in a hospital, the weird balance, like, with, closing elective surgeries and that
yeah,
is the hospitals have, as you're talking about, slave to the system. I mean, this is something that is unfortunate in the pandemic sense, is that hospitals have to make money, and ultimately that does mean, like, you know, they that is their bottom line ultimately to
exactly.
stay open. So closing elective surgeries is hurtful, but
It's
it's something that is deemed apparently necessary to keep
and that's the thing is
the
that like
whole system going.
when you see one man have his life suffocated out from under him from a police officer, it woke us up. It made us realize, when we saw George Floyd dying, it made us realize in that moment that like there's something that has to be done.
Colorado luckily did at least
Yeah, man,
something. I
Colorado's
didn't know the details
Colorado's
of it,
taking
but
actual progressive steps towards change. But how many other places can say they're actually doing that same thing, right? Like Colorado, when they say that they're taking away this initiative from the police, that's allowing it for the first time for the police to be investigated and prosecuted in a way that's genuine. That makes sense. And it's the first time we're ever doing this, man. That's the craziest part. Is that like people are like looking at Colorado and they're like, you guys are doing it great. You know what? Body
wait,
cameras get turned off immediately. That's considered, obvious
I just want
malintent.
to
Like,
I just
how does
want
that
to
even have to
shift
be a
the perspective.
conversation?
I just want to shift the perspective of what progressive is. It opening up bars, or is it such
Exactly.
legislation that you're talking about?
Exactly. Like, oh my god. When did when that's the thing is that like when I say that we've lost the narrative war, Reggie, what I mean is that like we are talking about certain things actively. You hear about it every day in and out when it comes to our political system, when it comes to the politics and things that we're interested in discussing. And you hear about it every single day on Facebook, right? But we don't talk about the things that actually matter. We don't talk about the fact that the President of the United States, like I said, for months now, has had information that Russians were incentivizing our military to be killed. This should be earth shake. Like, this should change everything, man. Why is it not?
Because either ignorance or supreme deep state.
It's published. It's
And
on the
there's
New
a
York Times,
section of
man.
that
I shared it.
where
It's there. What do you mean? I don't understand what you're saying, Reggie.
So the two possibilities of why that is either people are too ignorant to understand that, or it's so deep state that we're too ignorant to understand that.
I'm just saying, who needs to come up on a 5-minute, YouTube video to make people understand that we are saying something that's never been done before? Our commander-in-chief has known for months about essentially, kill.
What I'm saying is either people are naturally too ignorant to understand that, or they're being conditioned to be too ignorant to understand that.
But how can you make that argument, Reggie, when I shared the article? That's what I'm saying. It's there. I mean, I can go right now to my page. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. It's three scrolls down. Disgusted by this administration. How can anyone who's a patriot still support this trash? He's had this information for months. I intentionally left it ambiguous so that people would read the article, right? That was published on June 26, 9:31 from me. It was published from the New York Times on June 26, 2020, earlier that morning. This should be changing everything, Reggie, and I don't even see it being shared.
What the thing is though, is while the information may be valid, 100% accurate, 100%,
what do you mean?
Reception.
What?
So it's not. So you're saying it's like 3 scrolls down, and why is it changing people's minds?
I'm saying I don't get it. I want you to explain it to me. We know that for the President of the United States, for months, has known that any involvement with the Taliban that resulted in the deaths of American troops would also be a huge escalation of Russia, so-called hybrid war against the United States. And despite that, Russia has actively incentivized these contracts financially for our American soldiers to be killed.
But how many people have shared, liked, commented, subscribed, viewed?
That's what I was saying earlier, man. That's what I was saying earlier. It's 6 people. It's 6 people out of 2,465 people that I'm friends with on Facebook. It's 6 people that have in some way kind of emoticon offered something on that particular article. And that's the thing, is that, like, what am I supposed to do, man? What am I supposed to do?
That's what my comment was earlier, is how much is that reception, if you think of it on a spectrum, right? On one end is ignorance just because of ignorance. On the other end of that is ignorance because of deep state, which I understand, and that notion is conspiracy. On what
it's
end?
The New York goddamn
spectrum
Times, Reggie. It's the New York Times. Who
honestly
thinks the New York Times is a conspiracy?
I'm just saying, why is the reception to that information the way that it is?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking. I don't get it. I don't know.
I don't know. I was just proposing like a way to quantify the reception, and that's why I introduced the spectrum. And it is hard to understand where on some sort of the spectrum of where does the ignorance lie exist. Does that make any sense, or am I just being like out there? Anyway. You there?
Still there, Reggie?
Yeah.
So someone's literally moving in today.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know that was happening, but that's happening.
Like today is in
Like literally, as I'm talking to you, this conversation, the last hour, they've been moving in.
Oh, damn. Well, that's something.
Right? Things change quickly, even in your own home. Yeah, man. I feel so much better just after, giving that 5 seconds of, transitioning into a different environment, thinking about it. I feel so much better. I think that at the end of the day, most Americans haven't heard about the news. It is rather recent. And hopefully more people when they read the article will feel the same things I'm feeling, which is just a profound disgust in our president. I mean, I cannot think of anything worse. I mean,
Right.
I'm literally disgusted in him. And I thought I had a low opinion of him before, with the way he's handled this coronavirus. But like the fact that he's known about this for months and hasn't done anything, Reggie. The fact that his balls aren't over a goddamn fire right now, a media hailstorm should be raining on him with this information. Like that just shows you how asleep we all are, man.
Right.
I just appreciate being able to have a conversation like this with you so candidly. We both get it. We both understand what we're talking about. It's not like we're trying to have to explain what we're talking about. We're not having to educate. It's just understood. It's refreshing.
Yeah.
We've been talking now, for like 2 hours? Easily?
Yeah.
So aren't your folks visiting? How are you doing this?
What? No, my parents are in a hotel.
This entire time I thought they were with you.
No, damn. Fucks now.
That's why I was like, props to you, Reg. Like, going, hardcore in the paint. Almost 1 o'clock in the morning with your folks in the house.
No.
Yeah, man, at the end of the day, I think you're right. I think that there just needs to be more time, and people are going to, respond to that article in different ways, but hopefully they at least respond. Because, yeah, man, I can't think of anything that's ever happened like this ever before. Like, ever.
Right, this is crazy ass history.
I mean,
that's for sure.
The context makes this everything even worse, right? Like, he's actively working to get Russia back into the G8. It's just like a G7. It's just it's disgusting, man. They must have some good shit on him. That's all I know. They must have some good shit on him for him to not do anything for the last 3 months on this intel. Like,
wait, so what is... So apparently it's some Russian intel that...
I can't believe you haven't read this article either, Reggie. What are you doing, man?
I haven't actually, dude. I'm fucking doing
Okay, I'm gonna read it on air with you.
Oh, dude, I'm like really...
Dude, it's a 3-minute article about literally something that is going to change American politics forever. It's 3 minutes.
Alright, go for it. Why not?
American intelligence officials have concluded that a Russian military intelligence unit secretly offered bounties to Taliban-linked militants for killing coalition forces in Afghanistan, including targeting American troops. This was amid the peace talks to end the long-running war there, according to officials briefed on the matter. The United States concluded months ago that the Russian unit, which had been linked to assassination attempts and other covert operations in Europe intended to destabilize the West or take revenge on turncoats, had covertly offered rewards for successful attacks last year. Islamic militants are armed criminal elements closely associated with them are believed to have collected some bounty money, the officials said. 20 Americans were killed in combat in Afghanistan in 2019, but it was not clear which killings were under suspicion. The intelligence finding was briefed to President Trump, and the White House National Security Council discussed the problem at an interagency meeting in late March, the official said. Officials developed a menu of potential options, starting with making a diplomatic complaint to Moscow and demanding that it stop, along with an escalating series of sanctions and other possible responses, but the White House has yet to authorize any step, the official said. Any operation to incentivize the killing of American and other NATO troops would be a significant and provocative escalation of what American and Afghan officials have said is Russian support for the Taliban. It would be the first time the Russian spy unit was known to have orchestrated attacks on Western troops. Any involvement with the Taliban that resulted in the deaths of American troops would also be a huge escalation of Russia's so-called hybrid war against the United States, a strategy of destabilizing adversaries through a combination of such tactics as cyber attacks, the spread of fake news, and covert and deniable military operations. I'm not done, man. I've got another minute. The Kremlin has not been made aware of these accusations, said Dmitry Peskov, the press secretary for President Vladimir V. Putin of Russia. If someone makes them, we'll respond, Mr. Peskov said. They know they've got him by the balls. Zabullah Mujahid, a spokesman for the Taliban, denied that the insurgents have any such relations with any intelligence agency and called the reports an attempt to defame them. These kinds of deals with the Russian intelligence agency are baseless. Our target killings and assassinations were ongoing in years before, and we did it with our own resources, he said. That changed after our deal with the Americans, and their lives are secure, and we don't attack them. Spokespeople at the National Security Council, the Pentagon, and the State Department, and the CIA declined to comment. The officials familiar with the intelligence did not explain the White House delay in deciding how to respond to the intelligence about Russia. While some of his closest advisors, like Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, have counseled more hawkish policies towards Russia, Mr. Trump has adopted an accommodating stance towards Moscow. At a summit in 2018 in Helsinki, Finland, Mr. Trump strongly suggested that he believed Mr. Putin's denial that the Kremlin interfered in the 2016 presidential election, despite broad agreement within the American intelligence establishment that it did. Mr. Trump criticized a bill imposing sanctions on Russia when he signed it into law after Congress passed it by veto-proof majorities. And he has repeatedly made statements that undermine the NATO alliance as a bulwark against Russian aggression in Europe. The officials spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe the delicate intelligence and internal deliberations. They said that the intelligence has been treated as a closely held secret. But the administration expanded briefings about it this week, including sharing information about it with the British government, whose forces are among those said to have been targeted. The intelligence assessment is said to be based at least in part of interrogations of captured Afghan militants and criminals. The officials did not describe the mechanics of the Russian operation, such as how targets were picked or how money changed hands. It was also not clear whether Russian operatives had deployed inside Afghanistan or met with their Taliban counterparts elsewhere. The revelations into focus inside the Trump administration a delicate and distracted time. Although officials collected the intelligence earlier in the year, the interagency meeting at the White House took place as the corona pandemic was becoming a crisis and parts of the country were shutting down. I'm going to repeat that. These revelations came into focus inside the Trump administration at a delicate and distracted time. Although officials collected the intelligence earlier in the year, the interagency meeting at the White House took place as the coronavirus pandemic was becoming a crisis and parts of the country were getting shut down, or were shutting down. I've got literally like 3 more paragraphs, I think, left. I thought I may have undersold how long this is. Still with me, Reggie? Kind of. Sorry. I'm just reading the article, man. So the revelations, moreover, as Mr. Trump seeks a re-election in November, he wants to strike a peace deal with the Taliban to end the Afghanistan war. Both American and Afghan officials have previously accused Russia of providing small arms and other support to the Taliban that amounts to destabilizing activity, although Russian government officials have dismissed such claims as idle gossip and baseless. We've shared some interests with Russia in Afghanistan, and clearly they're acting to undermine our interests as well. General John W. Nicholson Jr., the commander of the American forces in Afghanistan at the time, said in 2018 when interviewed with the BBC. Through coalition troops suffered a spate of combat casualties last summer and early fall, only a few have since been killed. 4 Americans were killed in combat in early 2020, but the Taliban have not attacked American positions since a February agreement. American troops have also sharply reduced their movement outside military bases because of the coronavirus, reducing their exposure to attack. While officials were said to be confident about the intelligence that Russian operatives offered and paid bounties to Afghan militants for killing Americans, they have greater uncertainty about how high in the Russian government the covert operation was authorized and what its aim may be. Some officials have theorized that the Russians may be seeking revenge on NATO forces for a 2018 battle in Syria in which the American military killed several hundred pro-Syrian forces, including numerous Russian mercenaries, as they advanced on an American outpost. Officials have also suggested that the Russians may have been trying to derail peace talks to keep the United States bogged down in Afghanistan, but the motivation remains murky. The officials briefed on the matter said that the government has assessed the operation to be the handiwork of Unit 29155, an arm of Russia's military intelligence agency, known widely as the GRU, G-R-U. The unit established is linked to the March 2018 nerve agent poisoning in Salisbury, England, of Sergei Skripal, a former GRU officer who had worked for the British intelligence and then defected, and his daughter. Western officials said that the unit, which had operated for more than a decade, has been charged by the Kremlin with carrying out a campaign to destabilize the West through subversion, sabotage, and assassination. Reggie, I don't want to bore you, man. Like, this is damning stuff, man. I don't know how people don't have their mouths agape, reading this.
I mean, it is very important stuff. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm kind of tired right now, so
it is like what, 1 o'clock in the morning, man. I'll let you go. I just I appreciate the conversation, and we'll talk another time, man.
Sounds good, man.
Catch you later. You guys, I'm gonna finish this this little article because I think it's worth finishing on air, live. I'm running out of water. The reason I'm reading this article is it just doesn't seem to reach too many people, and that seems to be the issue. So I'm going live and just talking about literally what it says, just saying it out loud. So Western intelligence officials say the unit, which has operated for more than a decade, has been charged by the Kremlin with carrying out a campaign to destabilize the West through subversion, sabotage, and assassination. In addition to the 2018 poisoning, the unit was behind an attempted coup in Montenegro in 2016 and the poisoning of an arms manufacturer in Bulgaria a year earlier. American intelligence officials say the GRU was at the center of Moscow's covert efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election. In the months before that election, American officials say that two GRU cyber units, known as 26165 and 74455, hacked into Democratic Party servers and then used WikiLeaks to publish embarrassing internal communications. In part, those efforts were aimed at helping tilt the election in Mr. Trump's favor. His handling of issues related to Russia and Mr. Putin have come under particular scrutiny. The special counsel investigation found that the Trump campaign welcomed Russia's intervention and expected to benefit from it, but found insufficient evidence to establish that his associates had engaged in any criminal conspiracy with Moscow. Operations involving Unit 29155 tend to be much more violent than those involving the cyber units. Its officers are often decorated military veterans with years of service, in some cases dated to the Soviet Union's failed war in Afghanistan in the 1980s. Never before has this unit been accused of orchestrating attacks on Western soldiers, but officials briefed on its operations say it has been active in Afghanistan for many years. Though Russia declared the Taliban a terrorist organization in 2003, relations between them have been warming in recent years. Taliban officials have been traveled to Moscow for peace talks with other prominent Afghans, including the former President Hamid Karzai. The talks have excluded representatives from the current Afghan government, as well as anyone from the United States, and at times they have seemed to work at cross currents with American efforts to bring an end to the conflict. The disclosure comes at a time when Mr. Trump has said he would invite Mr. Putin to an expanded meeting of the Group of Seven Nations. But tensions between American and Russian militaries are running high. In several recent episodes in international territory and airspace from off the coast of Alaska to the Black and Mediterranean Seas, combat planes from each country have scrambled to intercept military aircraft from the other. Highly recommend you guys read this article yourself. Let me know what you guys think. I think I'm going to end on that note.